Count on LEX-18 News.
We're digging deeper into the criminal past of the accused DUI driver who Lexington police say caused a fiery wrong-way interstate crash that killed 3 people.
LEX-18 investigates after the mother of a Lawrenceburg man who died in the Franklin County jail filed suit saying her son should still be alive.
And a warning from local health officials about the dangers of vaping. LEX-18 News at 6 starts now. Good evening, I'm Kevin Christopher.
And I'm Nancy Cox. Thank you for joining us at 6. A fiery, wrong-way crash on I-75 in Lexington left 3 women dead last night.
Now, police say they believe alcohol or drugs may have been factors in that crash. And records show the driver has a long criminal history, including 4 previous DUIs. LEX-18's Karolina Buczek has the big story at 6.
It took hours of investigation to figure out how this accident actually unfolded. And Lexington police say there are so many layers to this fiery crash. What started off as a police chase ended up with 3 people dead.
The crash happened in Lexington around 10:15 last night, but police say this actually began in Clark County. And that's where Winchester police say an officer and a sheriff's deputy tried to pull a Ford F-150 over because the driver, 42-year-old Tammy Rodriguez, was speeding and swerving across several different lanes. But she did not stop, so they followed the truck into Lexington. That's where police say Rodriguez merged from I-64 west to I-75 north, made a sudden U-turn, and drove in the wrong direction. But she did not get far before she hit 2 cars. Police say she first hit a Chevy Sonic head on, and then a Jeep, causing it to roll over. In this mess, 3 people died. 6 people in total were involved. In the Chevy Sonic, 26-year-old Taylor Denise Blevins and 20-year-old Caitlin Danielle Bailey from Georgetown were killed. In the truck, Rodriguez had 2 people with her, and one of them, 35-year-old Debbie Lynn Bevins of Pikeville, died. The other was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Then in the Jeep, police say the driver was hurt but is expected to survive. Now, as far as Rodriguez goes, police believe she was driving either drunk or on drugs or both.
The driver did show signs of impairment. Whether it was alcohol or drugs, I'm not going to speak to right now. We did draw blood after her arrest, and the toxicology reports are pending at this time.
Lexington police charged her with a DUI and driving without a license. In Lexington, Karolina Buczek, LEX-18 News.
And that crash caused backups on several of the city's busiest roads this morning. Northbound interstate drivers were rerouted at exit 110 onto Winchester Road, then onto News Circle, all the way to Broadway, where drivers could finally get back on the interstate. Lexington police placed detour signs and were out on the roads manning traffic lights to try to keep traffic flowing, but still backups were lengthy. The interstate reopened about 12 hours after the crash. And this wrong-way wreck is reminiscent of another crash that happened in January.
That's when police say Joey Lee Bailey had already been drinking when he was overserved at Lexington's Horseshoes Kentucky Grill and Saloon early in the morning. He left the bar and drove the wrong way on I-75 until he crashed into an SUV carrying the Abbas family from Michigan. All 5 family members and Bailey died in that fiery crash. The owners of Horseshoes pleaded guilty to serving an intoxicated person. Remember, you can keep up with the latest news and traffic anytime by logging onto our website, LEX18.com. A Lawrenceburg mother says her son should have walked out of the Franklin County Regional Jail alive after his January arrest on drugs and other charges. Instead, he left in a coroner's van.
Now, Dylan Stratton's mother is suing the jail and others for wrongful death, among other things. LEX-18's Leigh Searcy viewed hours and hours of jail video leading up to Stratton's death and has this LEX-18 special report. Now, we do want to tell you that some parts of the story may be upsetting to watch.
Let's make sure I got technique. Is that it? That's it?
In 2015, Dylan Stratton's fellow seniors at Anderson County High School voted him class clown.
That's the tender-hearted son Leslie Glass remembers.
He had a great sense of humor. He laughed all the time.
After graduation, Stratton tried college, but ended up working different jobs. His mother says he was still trying to find his way, still struggling with the recent death of his stepfather.
They were pretty close, you know.
That was hard on him.
Yeah.
Then, January 17th of this year, police arrested Stratton on wanton endangerment and drug charges after a fight with a friend. He admitted using marijuana and ecstasy on top of his high blood pressure medicine. This would be his first and last trip to the Franklin County Regional Jail. Less than a week later, Glass says Dylan died naked and alone in a detox cell.
Why? That's the question that I keep asking. Why? Why wouldn't anyone help him?
Glass is suing the jail and its private health services provider for negligence and wrongful death, claiming Dylan would not have died but for defendants' gross, unconscionable, and deliberate indifference to the tortures of his untreated benzodiazepine withdrawal.
I know they could have taken him to the hospital. He would have been okay.
The day of his arrest, Stratton could walk and talk, as seen here at his video arraignment.
Mr. Stratton, are you going to hire an attorney to represent you?
I'm gonna get one because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is.
The next day of Friday, he was on video being moved to a private cell after Glass said he had a seizure for the very first time.
I just told him, well, they're not going to let anything happen to you. Just, calm down.
Here's a time-lapse look at Stratton through Monday. He's observed rolling on the floor, flailing his arms, and according to the lawsuit, was making delusional statements such as, "Please start the car." The suit states deputies contacted a mental health center that determined Stratton was actively psychotic and to use the safety chair. A nurse did give him Gatorade. By Tuesday morning, Stratton is seen in another court video sitting in a chair, barely responding to the judge.
Mr. Stratton, did you hire an attorney or did you ask me to appoint public defender's office for you?
I'm not really truthfully sure.
Watch as even the judge appears alarmed by Stratton's deteriorating condition and the condition of another inmate.
Is this a detoxing situation? What is going on?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have they been medically treated?
Yes, Your Honor.
Less than 24 hours later, Dylan Stratton was found dead in his cell. The coroner ruled as cause of death cardiac dysrhythmia and noted obesity and drug use.
All they had to do was take him to the hospital, get him some medical attention.
The family's attorney, Greg Belsley, believes the jail's own video tells the story.
I challenge anybody to watch that video and not be appalled.
He says the day before Stratton died, a nurse practitioner was at the jail, but never saw Stratton because he was not put on her patient list.
At some point, you've got to say, where does human decency come into all of this?
For the past month, we have tried repeatedly over the phone and in person to talk to Franklin County jailer Rick Rogers about Dylan Stratton. He has never once returned our calls and has since retired. This complaint raises serious questions about Dylan's jail medical records. Here's a copy of Dylan's observation chart given to the coroner the day he died. Of his nearly 6 days in jail, a nurse documented only 2 days' worth of his medical entries and circled no for signs of weakness, confusion, and slurred speech. His mother's suit alleges Southern Health Partners, the company contracted by the jail to treat inmates, later submitted fabricated records that show 2 pages of entries. Remember his last court appearance just hours before he died? That same day, Southern Health Partners' own monitoring form for Stratton documented no across the board for weakness, confusion, and slurred speech.
They should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, what kind of medical establishment are you?
Here in black and white, the company's own withdrawal form requires staff to report all findings to the medical director if a patient is not progressing well. In bold print, it says if there are changes or deterioration, to notify physician immediately. Stratton's mother wants to know why the company didn't follow its own policies.
I just would not think that they would not do what they're supposed to do as a human being. How do you not care for someone?
We called Southern Health Partners for answers. An attorney referred us to the company's response to the lawsuit, which claims its staff acted in good faith and that if Stratton suffered any harm, it was as a result of his own actions, not those of Southern Health Partners.
Why? That's the question that I keep asking. Why? Why wouldn't anyone help him? And I can't get past that. He made some mistakes and he'd done some things he shouldn't have, but he was just 21. He was just a kid. He didn't deserve to suffer at all.
Leigh Searcy reporting. Stratton's family says the morning he died, jail staff took his friend, who was arrested with him and also detoxing, straight to the hospital. He lived. Frankfort police investigated the death and consider the case clear of criminal wrongdoing.
We have been tracking Hurricane Dorian now for better than a week. It is now paralleling the coast of South Carolina. May have a date with North Carolina here before the next 12 hours or so are done. You can see the eye has become a little less well-defined, at least for a while today, as it was interacting with areas just north of Charleston. We've had storm surges, we've had coastal flooding going on, numerous tornadoes, especially in North Carolina. Winds are still sustained at 105, gusting to 125, sitting 85 miles or so south of Wilmington, North Carolina. May clip Wilmington there. More likely the landfall will occur somewhere around the Outer Banks, which we have here on our future track. We'll go through this evening. 11 o'clock, it is near Wilmington, but working more towards, say, Jacksonville, North Carolina, getting over through the Outer Banks, Cape Hatteras, and eventually exiting around Kitty Hawk sometime mid-morning tomorrow. Still likely as a Category 2 storm. So we're talking extensive storm surges, high waves all along the North Carolina coast. By the time we get you into tomorrow evening, the storm is, well, heading off to the northeast and will clip Virginia and perhaps New England. For us, we're in the upper 70s and low 80s. It is a nice day. We've got a nice weekend coming. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Thanks, Bill.
We'll be right back.
This has been fascinating to watch this afternoon. This is a live shot coming from Frying Pan Shoals. There is a platform out there about 40 miles south of North Carolina there and out in the Atlantic. Over the last hour, winds are gusting almost 70 miles an hour. The swells that you're seeing out there are right around 20 feet. It has, again, been just incredible to watch as Hurricane Dorian continues moving closer to that location. We are looking at the storm now. So Frying Pan Shoals is going to be right about there. So it's not quite to the eye wall yet, but it's coming right for me. So that's going to be a real interesting picture in about an hour or so. But you see the spiraling arms of Dorian here as it continues working its way now northeast. It has been running parallel to the coast. It moved in for a little while, bounced back out again, but now it's looking northeast. So storm surges are certainly in play. We have been watching numerous tornadoes coming out of this storm. We'll talk about that in just a second. As we've watched this storm this afternoon, there you see it again spinning close to Charleston. A lot of power outages around Charleston. Then you see it scooting out and getting a little bit less disorganized here. Where the last little bit, the eye is beginning to get a little bit better definition once again, but sitting at 105 miles per hour, moving northeast at 10, 80-some miles from Wilmington, North Carolina, where we do have hurricane warnings from Charleston all the way to Virginia Beach. Storm surge, and that's going to be a nasty part of this, especially on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, 6 to 8 feet, maybe a little bit more. From the Outer Banks down to around Myrtle Beach, you're looking at a 4 to 6 foot storm surge. High winds certainly a part of the storm. It's been close enough to the coast that we have been seeing hurricane wind gusts all along the coastal areas of South and North Carolina. And so with it that close, we have been seeing, again, the damage reports. But the other thing, It's been the tornadic reports coming out of this storm. So far, about 24 tornado reports, mostly out of North Carolina with this over the last 24 hours. What happens as these spiral bands are rotating in, there's a tremendous amount of shear already available. When they hit the frictional effects of land, all of a sudden what had been moving in kind of a broad circulation really tightens up, and this is often a trait of landfalling hurricanes where you see these tornado reports. Right now it's a Category 2, 105 on the wind, stays that way as it's close to Wilmington later tonight, early tomorrow morning. Should be crossing the barrier islands there of the Outer Banks. It'll exit then around Kitty Hawk tomorrow afternoon, still as a 2, then works its way up across eastern Canada, and there's enough cold air sitting there that there's a possibility there could be some snow flying from that in Canada. Dorian pummels the Carolinas. It has really hit them hard. Florida got off fairly easily. The Carolinas have not. For us, it's a cool night tonight and a dry outlook, and some late summer heat returns next week. So there's Dorian. We are looking at high pressure sitting up there over Michigan. Look at that clear sky. You're over in eastern Kentucky. You may be able to look off to the east and see some of the clouds from Dorian, but a nice northerly flow here will keep our weather tranquil, dry. A little reinforcing cool front comes in here to get your Saturday going. Should come through dry, a couple of clouds, but another shift to a northerly wind. Little lower humidity. It will be a cooler game for us Saturday at Kroger Field compared to what we endured last Saturday. By the way, a fantastic and wonderful night for Thursday Night Live. If you get a chance to, certainly head down there. Beautiful night, clear sky, mid-50s. Tomorrow, it's low 80s, sunshine, and a little bit more humidity. Rest of your 8-day, low and mid-80s through the weekend, and it does look dry. There's your heat next week. More LEX-18 news after this.
According to FBSschedules.com, Kentucky and Louisville football have extended their contract through the 2027 season, and it will remain as the final regular season game for both. Now, the Wildcats lead that series 16-15 after winning last season in Louisville 56-10, the second win for the Cats in the last 3 years. Well, this week, Kentucky is focused on playing Eastern Michigan. Many might call it a trap game because Florida visits Kroger Field next Saturday. But UK played Eastern Michigan 2 years ago in Kroger Field and barely beat the Eagles 24-20. So there is extra motivation for the Cats this week to make sure they get a win.
We got our tail kicked. We absolutely got our tail kicked. We didn't play well enough. It was awful. And the answer is yes, we have watched it. And yes, they are seeing it.
Several of those guys in that game on the offensive line gave up a lot of sacks and tackles for loss. How much have they taken that to heart this week? And
yes, they've watched it, and yes, they know about it.
Eastern Kentucky is going to be looking for its own upset on Saturday when the Colonels visit Louisville. The Cardinals only have 5 days to get ready for EKU. Meantime, the Colonels started the season with a 53-7 win over Valparaiso.
Obviously, this is we're going to play in front of a large crowd, and being an in-state team, there's a number of guys that we recruited that are from the area that this is going to be a big game for them because they're going to get to go home and play in front of their home crowd. It presents some unique situations because this is a brand new staff.
Don't forget, later tonight we'll be revealing our game of the week on LEX-18 News at 11. You had the chance to vote on these 3 games, and it will be the focus of our high school sports zone tomorrow night. The NFL season begins tonight right here on LEX-18. The Green Bay Packers visit the Chicago Bears with kickoff set for 8:20. Now, Chicago finished with a 12-4 record last season. The Packers 6-9-1, and they have a new coach, a head coach in Matt LaFleur. This is a huge rivalry game that will be a good way to get the season started right here again on LEX-18. The Reds are catching fire in the last month of the season. It was tied at 3 today in the 11th inning when Phillip Ervin walked it off for the Reds with a solo shot. Cincinnati takes it 4-3 to win the first 2 games against the Phillies. LEX-18 News. We'll be right back.
We'll get another good-looking day tomorrow. Temperatures heading back into the low end mid-80s. Some clouds, but not many.
Not bad. Thank you for watching. NBC Nightly News is coming up next. We'll see you again at 7 on Evening Edition and on LEX-18 News at 11.